Hello friends, welcome you again, and today again let us discuss one more topic for your upcoming exam for CIL MT post for material management. If you can recall, last time we discussed one topic which was related to Incoterms, where I discussed with you some of the terms, Incoterms like CFR, CIF, FOB, FS, etc. Right? I discussed those terms in detail with you, right, in that video. So in this video, I have taken one more topic which I am going to discuss with you, and that is the negotiable instruments. This topic is very prominent, which is clearly given in your this syllabus, and also Negotiable Instruments Act. Basically, it falls under that category. So even though I am not going to discuss with you in this video the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881, but obviously I am going to discuss about what are the negotiable instruments and some of the negotiable instruments which have been mentioned in that particular act, right? So let us discuss those, so first let us try to understand the meaning of negotiable instruments. Now, when we are talking about the instruments over here, basically we are talking about the documents. Now see, whenever you are carrying out any business activity, there are two parties involved. One is supplier, another one is the purchaser, right, or the customer. So supplier and customer, these are the two parties involved. So if you are purchasing something, obviously you are going to pay for that also. So in this topic that we are discussing, basically it is related to the method through which we are going to make the payment. That purchaser is going to make the payment, that buyer is going to make the payment to the supplier. So we could have, you may be knowing the different, for example, in a common parlance that you, for example, purchase something, you pay in cash. But in business activity, it is not possible for you always to pay in cash. So you have different methods of making the payments. And some of those methods are covered under negotiable instruments. So negotiable instruments are nothing, they are the method through which we will make the payment. But what is the meaning of those? That we will understand. Negotiable instruments specifically, that we will understand. So as I told you, negotiable instruments is simply the way or the document which we will make use of in order to make the payment. That's all, right? So just have a look over here in this statement. A negotiable instrument is a document. Now don't get confused with the document. You are not making cash, you are not making payment in the form of cash. So how you have to make the payment? For example, all of you know about the check. Check is also a kind of negotiable instrument. So check, you know, so if I want to make a payment to someone, so what I do? I write a check. I have a checkbook with me. Bank has issued that checkbook to me, and that is a document only. So I will take out one that document, that is the check, and I just okay, if I have to make some payment to someone, I write that okay, this much amount should be paid to this fellow and all that. Same way, these negotiable documents are nothing but they are a kind of way to make the payment. So document is just, if you just when you talk about the instrument, just in your mind, the first thing that should strike your mind is the check. So I think you will be able to relate it easily. For example, this is a document, right? Negotiable document, or something like this. This is a negotiable document, or this is a negotiable instrument, something, right? So is a document that guarantees the payment of specific amount of money to a specified person. So as I told you, like check is also a kind of negotiable document. So if I give a check to someone, that means it is guaranteeing. Then obviously once I have handed over the check to some person and he goes to bank, then obviously it is guaranteeing that his payment will be made. That I am guaranteeing it to make the make the payment to that particular person, and requires payment either on demand or at a set date. Now, so on demand mean, if I have given the check, that person can go anytime to the bank and ask for the payment. Bank is going to pay for that. That is on demand, whenever that person demands. Or it may happen at a set date, or it may happen that okay, you may mention okay, that this payment should be made on so and so date, or by that particular point of time, by that particular time. So that is also possible for us to write in those documents, right? So I hope you got the idea that what is the meaning of a negotiable instrument. So simply, now why the term negotiable has been used, that is important. Now negotiable instrument is simply a document. So negotiable instrument mean that these documents, let's say if I am making a payment to you, then not only that I can make a payment to you, but if you ask me that okay, instead of making payment to me, you just make the payment to some third person, right, instead of making payment to you directly, right? Even though I have to make the payment to you, I am obliged to pay you, but you are saying okay, you have to pay to me, I have taken money from some other person, so why don't you pay directly to him? So it means we are transferring, that means it is possible for us to transfer that payment to some other person also. So if any negotiable, when we talk about any negotiable instrument, that means that instrument is transferable, that payment is transferable, even though I'm obliged to pay you, but since you have asked me to pay to third person, so it is possible for me to make that payment directly to that third person also, right? So that is the meaning of negotiable instrument. That means negotiable means it is possible for us to transfer to third party also, right? So the term negotiable in the negotiable instrument refers to the fact that they are transferable to different parties, not only 1, 2, 3, n number of times you can transfer to some other person within that particular period of time, right? That is possible. So if it is transferred, the new holder obtains the full legal title to it. For example, I had to make the payment to you, but since you asked me to make the payment to the third party, some other person, so now that becomes that means the mention is the new holder. That means the third person now asks me directly, not you. Okay, he can ask you, but first he will come to me. So that third person has now got the legal right to ask for the payment from me directly now. That is the meaning of it, right? So the new holder obtains the full legal title to it. That is the meaning of it. So I think you understood the meaning of negotiable instrument. Now let's go to the little more details. Negotiable instruments enable its holder to either take the funds in cash or transfer to another person. The same thing that I mentioned you. The exact amount that the payer is promised to pay is indicated in the negotiable. Obviously, you are going to mention that this much amount should be paid by either on demand, as I explained you, or maybe by a specified date. Like contracts, negotiable instruments are signed by issuer of the document. Obviously, the person who is issuing that, obviously they have to sign it. Without signature, it carries no meaning. Negotiable instruments contain the key information such as principal amount, kitna pay karna hai, how much I have to pay. If there is any some kind of interest that also I have to pay, wo bhi aap mention karoge. For example, this is a document. You mention okay 1000 rupee or maybe at an interest rate of 2%, something that also you need to mention. Interest rate, date, and most importantly signature of that. So obviously otherwise without signature it carries no meaning. Now same thing will be. Now how does this act, Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 talks about these negotiable instruments, right? Just have a look. Again the same statement. A negotiable instrument is a document guaranteeing the payment of a specified amount of money either on demand or at a set time. Same thing what we discussed according to the section 13. Now this, remember this section 13 where it has been clearly mentioned that what are the different kinds of negotiable instrument, right? So if you frames the question that the different kinds of negotiable instruments are mentioned under the particular section of article, this Negotiable Instrument Act, so then you must know a negotiable instrument means kya matlab hai, which are covered under negotiable instruments. So these are clearly mentioned under it: promissory note, bill of exchange, and check payable either to order or bearer. Now that we will discuss. Okay, I will not go into to the order or to bearer as of now, because in the next step when I will discuss with you separately, so that this thing will be clear. So but it is clear that these, as per this act, promissory note, bill of exchange and check are considered as negotiable instruments. Okay, clear? So negotiable instrument is a promise to pay, make the payment money. That's all. That means this document basically is promising you to make the payment, right? It is guaranteeing to make the payment. Now again, let me sum it up. I think the same statements have been mentioned over here, but in a different context. But okay, we can sum it up. What is the meaning of negotiable instruments and all that? The main characteristics of the negotiable instrument. Kya characteristics are? Financial worth, because you are mentioning specifically the amount. Transferability, that is the biggest feature of this negotiable instruments. We will also talk about some of the non-negotiable instruments. Now see the non-negotiable. What does that mean? You cannot negotiate. It means you cannot transfer. So if let us say I have to make the payment to you directly, and let us say if I issue the document to you, then you cannot transfer to third party. Non-negotiable. In that case, I can make the payment to you only. I have to make the payment to you only. So that will become non-negotiable. So those things also we will discuss at a later stage. As long as the instrument contains this feature, it can be negotiable instrument, right? There are several customary payment mode that resembles with negotiable instruments. मतलब कुछ और तरीके भी हैं. We have some other method जो कि they look like similar to that of these negotiable instruments. मतलब इन documents की तरह लगेंगे, but they are not legally authorized. For example, इंडिया में पहले एक सिस्टम चलता था called as हुंडी सिस्टम, right? So that resembles the negotiable. वो negotiable instruments की तरह मतलब डॉक्यूमेंट की तरह ही दिखेगा, but not legally recognized. तो वो legally recognized नहीं है. अगर if you have to take the example, even though I will explain the promissory note. See, this is the format of some promissory note which I am going to explain you. For example, here you are saying, okay, this much amount I am going to pay to some party and all that. Then you are having revenue stamps and all that. And this is a sample promissory note. Now, Hundi system also have similar kind of documents. They used to be over there. It was prevalent earlier. So here, if you see, so it is clearly written over a Hundi. That is the Hundi. That means it's something kind of a promise to make the payment. And also, if you see over here, Hundi is written. And again, in this also, it is written that okay, this much amount we are going to pay at an interest rate of something and all that, and both parties have signed over there, something that way. But as I told you, Hundi system is not legal in India now, right? So, but they will look like, they will appear like same as of these other negotiable instruments. Now, let us discuss, in this video, I will be discussing with you two negotiable instruments. One is promissory note, the other one is the this bill of exchange. These two documents, these instruments I am going to discuss with you, right? So let us go to this promissory note. Now, before I read this statement to you, I will just explain it with the help of the parties involved. So first I will take it to this particular this. Now I have already shown you how does that particular promissory note look like. ये ध्यान रहे कि promissory note इस तरह का कुछ document दिखेगा, which will promise you to pay. One party is going to pay to another. So इसमें आपने सारी details दिखी होंगी. But let me explain you with the help of the parties who are involved in this particular promissory note. So just pay attention to the parties. Rest you will understand. So we have already discussed that you are going to have a supplier. Another one is going to be customer or purchaser, whatever you call. Customer या purchaser or buyer. So एक buyer होगा and the other one is the supplier. It may happen that in business transaction you don't always have money ready to be like you don't have the kind of a liquid money which through which you can immediately pay, right? So let us say you have a situation, ये जो customer है, जो buyer है, he doesn't have money at that point of time, right? And he ask the supplier that okay, I cannot pay you right now, but at a later stage I can pay you, maybe later, maybe 2-3 months later I can pay you, right? So basically what happens is, so if buyer says that okay, and this supplier agrees, okay, if you don't have money, okay, I can give you credit in the sense कोई बात नहीं, उधार दे देता हूँ अभी, but obviously he will not give उधार देगा तो obviously what he has to get some kind of promise, some kind of written promise which is legally valid, so that at later stage अगर buyer मना कर देता नहीं पैसे नहीं देने हैं, let us say if it so you should have something so that you can file a case and then get your money back, something that way, right? So what the buyer will do in this case of promissory note. So right now we are talking about the promissory note, right? It's a document simply. So in promissory note, now customer क्या करेगा, buyer क्या करेगा, he will prepare a document. As I had shown you, and in that document this customer or a buyer will promise to pay this supplier the given amount of money at so and so date, or maybe on demand also, as we discussed. So इसमें वो सब कुछ he is going to write everything that okay, I am promising to make this payment to you, and he will sign and then send it to you. So that is why if you see, now there are 2-3 terms that will be related to it, but before going to that, let me just overall मैं idea दे देता हूँ, that's all. So customer is promising to make the payment to this. So what is the issuance of promissory note? So a document क्या किया उसने, customer ने साइन किया, he signed the document and then he is giving that signed document to that particular supplier. supplier को दे दिया जिसको पैसे मिलने हैं, and then at later stage at that particular promissory note matures और time जैसा भी लिखा होगा, at that particular point time he will get his money. That is how the flow of the things will be. Now there are some terms which have been mentioned to you. अब हुआ क्या यहाँ पर देखो, supplier ने क्या किया, whatever the goods and services he has supplied, and in response to that buyer has promised through this particular promissory note which is legal, and after signing it he has sent it to this particular drawee. अब drawee के पास, sorry drawee बाद में बात करता हूँ. So supplier के पास है, now supplier is saying that document, and based upon document he can take his payment as per the agreed term which you have mentioned over there, right? This is a flow of thing. So keep it in mind, in promissory note from the term itself, who is going to promise? ये तो promise नहीं कर रहा है, उधार तो इसने लिया, he has taken the money on credit. So that means buyer is promising to make the payment. So promissory note जब भी आएगा तो पहला term जो है, just see at this particular first term, that is promise. तो who is promising? Buyer, purchaser. So customer. So the customer is promising to make the payment to the supplier. As simple as that. So he will prepare the document and then sign and send it to this. Now let us see the terms, different terms which are used for customer and these over there in these documents that we need to be clear about. Now if you see over here, in case of customer there are few terms which are written over here, drawer and maker, debtor, payer, and over here drawee, bearer, creditor and payee. Now let me first explain these terms so you will have the clarity, and then I think now these terms we will explain you. Maker you can very well understand. Maker mean the entity, the organization which will make that note, promissory note. So and we also call that as a drawer, who is drawing that particular note, who is writing that note. An individual entity who makes or draws the promissory note, who makes or draws that promissory note with a promise to pay a certain sum of money in a specified period of time and all that. Maker is also known as promisor. Now we will give a different name to this fellow called as who has made this particular payment or this note. What is saying? Because he is making it, so we call him a maker, and since he is also promising, so we can also call him as a promisor. We can also call that entity as a drawer also, because he is drawing, that party is or that entity is drawing that note, making that note. Now see these terms over here. Drawer mean customer. In this case, drawer will be customer because customer is promised. So customer in this case will be drawer making that note. So he is a maker. He is a payer. Why now payer? You know, first terms maker, he is maker, promiser because he is promising to pay. He is issuer because he is issuing this particular note. Now payer because why payer? Because they have to, customer has to make the payment to the supplier. That is why payer. Debtor का मतलब क्या हुआ? उधार लिया है इसने, तो कस्टमर क्या है? डेटर है क्योंकि उसने उधार लिया है, right? So that is why debtor. So all these terms you can associate over here. Am I clear? So either you call that customer over here promissory note. Now keep it in also mind, because when we will talk about the bill of exchange, a few things will reverse. So that is why you should have great like you should have clarity over here. What are these terms associated with whom? So here these terms are associated with customer. Now there is another term called as pay. देखो पे का मतलब है पेयर, जैसे मैंने कहा आपको पेयर कौन होगा? जिसने पे करना है, द पर्सन और द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हु इज गोइंग टू पे. पे कौन होगा? जिसको पैसा मिलना है. द एंटिटी, द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हु इज गोइंग टू गेट द मनी, दैट विल बी पे. सो अगर पे में कंफ्यूजन आए तो पेयर की तरफ देखो पहले. पेयर का मतलब देने वाला, राइट? सो पे मीन ए पे इज ए समवन हुम द पेमेंट इज मेड, जिसको पेमेंट मिलनी है, राइट? तो पेमेंट तो हमेशा किसको मिलेगी? पेमेंट इज, अगर आप जनरल सेंस में देखोगे जिसने अपना सेलर, जिसने अपना गुड्स सेल किए हैं, उसी को पेमेंट वापस आए, बाहर ही देगा उसको, राइट? नाउ देयर इज अ टर्म आल्सो कॉल्ड एज ड्रॉई. नाउ यहां पर पे और ड्रॉई में थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना, इसमें थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन हो सकता है. यू कुड हैव लिटिल कंफ्यूजन, बट एनीवे, द वन इन हुज फेवर द प्रोमिसरी नोट इज बीइंग ड्रॉन, मतलब जिसकी फेवर में मैंने प्रोमिसरी नोट ड्रॉ किया. नाउ इस केस में it is considered to be creditor who has provided. Okay, anyway, इसको यहां देख लेते हैं. Now tell me over here, in whose favor customer has drawn this promissory note, in whose favor customer has drawn this promissory note? You will say obviously supplier. So जिसकी भी फेवर में आप क्या करोगे, यू आर गोइंग टू ड्रॉ दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रोमिसरी नोट, उसको हम बोलेंगे ड्रॉई. तो ड्रॉई तो हो गया जिसकी फेवर में ड्रॉ करोगे. ड्रॉर द कस्टमर हु इज नॉट कस्टमर, द एंटिटी हु इज ड्रॉइंग मेकिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर नोट. है क्लियर? नाउ ये जो ड्रॉई है इसके अलग अलग नाम ये भी हो सकते हैं. क्या? लेट अस से इफ आई से बियरर, व्हाई इज कॉलिंग बियरिंग? बियरिंग मतलब होल्डिंग, होल्डर. बियरर किसका बियरर? सप्लायर इज गोइंग टू बियरर ऑफ व्हाट? प्रोमिसरी नोट. इसके हाथ में है, उसने प्रॉमिस करके दे दिया इसको, अब सप्लायर ने अपने पास रखा है. दैट इज व्हाई बियरर. क्रेडिटर उधार देने वाला, उधार में दिया ये गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. देन यू आर हैविंग पेई. पेई, व्हाई पेई? वी आर आल्सो कॉलिंग दिस ड्रॉई ओवर हियर पेई आल्सो बिकॉज सी यहां पर एक स्टेटमेंट है जिसको हम बाद में थोड़ा सा मैं आई एम गोइंग टू मेक ए डिफरेंस ओवर हियर. ए प्रोमिसरी नोट ड्रॉई एज वेल एज पेई कैन बी द सेम पर्सन. सो दैट इज यहां पर जो ड्रॉई है जिसके नाम पे यू हैव ड्रॉन दैट पर्टिकुलर promissory note, he is also payee. Payee, why payee? Because he will receive, that entity will receive the money, right? And in addition to it, just have a look. Drawee, payee, lender उधार देने वाला, creditor meaning is same, creditor lender उधार दे रहा है, ये supplier उधार दे रहा है, promisee, right? ये promiser है जिसने promise किया, ये promiser है जिसने promise किया देने का. ऑन whom? प्रोमिसी. ये प्रोमिसी है. एक्सेप्टर, एक्सेप्टर कौन होगा इसमें? किसने एक्सेप्ट किया? सप्लायर हैज एक्सेप्टेड दैट दिस प्रोमिसरी नोट. दैट इज व्हाई ही इज द एक्सेप्टर आल्सो. नाउ आई होप इट इज क्लियर टू यू. नाउ इफ दैट बी द केस देन जस्ट हैव अ लुक ओवर हियर. द टर्म हमने कहा था पे इज समवन टू whom पेमेंट इज मेड, राइट? सो we can say that okay, this customer has to make the payment to supplier. So payee तो यही होगा, has to make the payment to supplier. But we have also said that okay, these negotiable instrument they are transferable. तो transferable and that means let us say if this particular supplier says that okay, supplier ने किसी third party से क्या किया, उधार लिया है, they have also taken the that means lent money from some other entity. तो supplier क्या बोलेगा कि instead of making the payment to me, customer को बोल रहा है instead of making the payment to me, why don't you make that payment directly to some other person? एक third party involved होगी. So if third party is involved, then if I ask you to whom the payment will be made, अब payment किसको मिलेगी? इसको मिलेगी या that third party? You will say that third party. So that is why the payee क्या हो जाएगा इस केस में? payee वो थर्ड पार्टी हो जाएगी जिसको पैसा मिलेगा, the party which is going to get that money. So that is why if you say if third party is involved in which we can transfer it, for example अब क्या करेंगे, यहां पर देखो ये दोनों जो हैं यहां पर हैं. So ड्रॉर ने ड्रॉ किया था सप्लायर के ऊपर, so supplier was drawing, but now अब सप्लायर और इसके बीच जो थर्ड पार्टी के बीच जो है you are having agreement, so you are asking to pay, you are asking this customer to pay to this third party. So इनके बीच आपस में एग्रीमेंट है. So this particular this supplier endorses the third party. मतलब they will endorse, बोलेंगे कि नहीं instead of me you just make the payment to some other entity, और उसको नाम दिया endorse. So endorse कौन कर रहा है? This one, supplier to third party, that is endorsee. So इस केस में अब आपने जो the promissory note that you had drawn was in whose name? Supplier name. So drawee तो यही रहा, but the payee will change now. Payee will be the person who will actually get the payment. So payee यहां पर कौन हो गया? That endorsee, the third party. Okay, so that is how we can say that this negotiable instrument will work. Third party को transfer हो सकता है, right? So that is how you have to see. So ये ध्यान रखना आपने कि it is possible for us to make the payment to third party also. So to whom that supplier is going to make the endorsee. So इसने इसको endorse किया third party को, and that third party become endorsee. Now the third party will become payee. So that is why if you see this statement over here, even a promissory note ड्रॉई एज वेल एज पेई कैन बी द सेम पर्सन। यहां पर क्या था, आई वॉज कॉलिंग ड्रॉई, जिसके नाम ड्रॉ किया गया था, एंड जिसको पेमेंट मिलनी थी, द एंटिटी दैट वाज गोइंग टू गेट द पेमेंट, दे वर बोथ वर द सेम। बट ओवर हियर now when you have endorsed the third party, the payment, you will not get the payment, so you are the drawee only, but the payee will be that third party. Okay, so that is the difference that you need to note. So I hope you understood these terms, and now let's have a look on this. So now you will understand this whole sentence, what they have mentioned over here. According to the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881, the meaning of promissory note is what? An instrument, document in writing, it cannot be verbal, not being bank note and currency, obviously currency note या bank note तो है नहीं, containing an unconditional undertaking. Now just have a look over it. Unconditional undertaking, you are not putting any condition that we will make you, once we will inspect, that there will be no defect and all that, and they are putting more condition that once I will get some money from third person, only then I will make you the payment. Let's say आप ये condition, you cannot put that condition, right? So promissory note mean issued by buyer. Buyer cannot say that okay, when I will get the money from my friend, then only I will make you the payment. He can put that condition. So unconditional, without any condition, he is writing, promising you to make the payment by that particular point of by that time. Signed by maker, obviously signed by maker. That means in this case buyer was the maker, to pay a certain sum of money only to, या तो उसको ही परचेजर को, सॉरी इसको सप्लायर को, to the order of certain person, to the order of certain person mean third party as we discussed, or to the bearer of the instrument. अब ये जो term है to the bearer of the instrument का मतलब है, see when we say pay to bearer, it means जिसके भी हाथ में वो डॉक्यूमेंट है, he can take that money. That is the meaning of bearer. So let us say when you write anything as such as the pay to bearer, in that case जिसके हाथ में वो इंस्ट्रूमेंट, उसको आपको पेमेंट करनी पड़ेगी. But what has happened is, in this act they have mentioned that okay, that document, whosoever holds that document, then to that entity buyer can make the payment. बट जो आपका आरबीआई का रेगुलेशन है, सॉरी रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया का जो एक्ट है, वो कहता है कि प्रोमिसरी नोट आर नॉट पेबल टू बियरर. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि सिंपली किसी का, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल क्या है कि आप चेक्स के केस में भी, चेक अगर आप क्या करते हो, इफ यू गिव चेक टू समवन, तो एक तो है यू जस्ट राइट द नेम ऑफ दैट पर्सन, दैट ओके पे टू दिस पर्टिकुलर पर्सन, तो इन दैट केस दैट पेमेंट इज गोइंग टू बी मेड टू ओनली दैट पर्सन ओनली. बट इफ यू से दैट ओके पे टू द बियरर, पे टू बियरर मीन whosoever holds that A B C X Y Z, जो भी पर्सन जिसके हाथ में वो चेक होगा, if he goes to bank then he can withdraw that money. That is the meaning of pay to bearer, कि जिसके हाथ में whosoever holds that or carries that particular document, then he can get the payment. That is the meaning. But RBI Act has made it illegal, so nowadays you can say promissory note cannot be paid to the bearer. So that is the meaning of it. Okay, so this is how you have this promissory note. What is the meaning of promissory note and all that, what is kind of document is and all that I have already explained you. Okay, so now let's move on to the another kind of document. Okay, just very briefly, even though we have explained you. Just have a look. So it's a legal document which states that borrower promises to pay lender specific sum of money and all that. It is used in taking loans. Okay. So parties involved, drawer है, drawee है, payee है. I've already explained you. And these are different types of. You don't need to go in detail in that. So could be written or printed. Obviously it cannot be oral. Promise to pay on specific date or demand. Signature of both the parties with stamp. Right. Unconditional promise. पेमेंट टू बी मेड इन कॉमन लीगल करेंसी, ऑब्वियसली जो दोनों ने एक्सेप्ट की है लीगल करेंसी. कंटेन्स डिटेल अबाउट द ट्रांजेक्शन एंड एग्रीमेंट. यू विल से ओके दिस मच अमाउंट, लेट्स से इफ सम काइंड ऑफ if let's say interest is also involved, then also you can mention over there. Can be issued by financial institutions or even by companies who are transacting that particular. So this could be the format, overall idea you need to have, that how does it look like and all that. Now, and this was the hundi, which is not legal now, as I told you. Now there is one more instrument called as bill of exchange. Now bill of exchange is also a negotiable instrument, exactly on the same lines as we had the promissory note. So overall things are going to remain same, but the only thing that will change will be who is going to issue that particular bill of exchange. Okay, those things will change, otherwise other terms and those things will be related. I will read this statement to you again the same way, but before that let me just take you to the this, right? Again the same way, two parties involved. Okay, so one party is supplier, the other party is customer. Again same thing, that customer is saying that okay, I cannot pay you immediately, so I may need some time, maybe 2-3 months, so give me credit. So supplier is going to give the credit, but the document in promissory note, customer was issuing the that note document, which we were calling them that as a promissory note. He was promising to this supplier, right? Now the document in case of bill of exchange is not being issued by the customer. Now that document is issued by supplier. So supplier is going the bill of exchange, issuance of bill of exchange. Now this document will be prepared by whom? This supplier. And obviously if this supplier is issuing the document, then obviously it has to be sent to the customer, because until and unless it is signed by the customer, it carries no value. So what you have to do is you have to send it to the customer. Customer will sign it, and then it will give it back to you. What you have done is you have supplied the goods and services. Obviously once you have supplied goods and services, and for that now you are at the same time you are issuing the bill of exchange, and then bill of exchange on the similar lines like what we had mentioning all those details and all that, and then you are having the getting it signed from customer. Now this document will come back to you, and then if you want to at later stage whatever you have agreed, you will get that money, your money back. Now just have a look over here. Who is drawer over here? Drawer mean maker. Who is drawer? Now supplier is the drawer. Earlier customer was the drawer in case of promissory note. Now here supplier is the drawer, and then who becomes drawing? Customer, because you have drawn this on the customer, right? So you have drawn it on the customer, so this becomes drawee. Now tell me, bearer, who is going to bear it? Obviously always it has to be with the supplier only. And who is creditor? Supplier only. Earlier case was in earlier case also creditor was supplier, bearer was supplier, but the only difference was that it was drawee, whereas drawer was customer in case of promissory note. But this has got reversed now. Here supplier becomes drawer, whereas customer becomes drawee. Acceptor, obviously they have to accept it now. Customer has to accept it. Payer, who is going to pay it? Obviously customer is going to pay. Earlier also customer was paying. And who will be the payee? Obviously supplier. You have to make it the payment to the payee. That means money. Who is going to receive the money? Supplier is going to receive the money. So that is the only change that you can just think of in case of bill of exchange, and some other differences, minor differences that you will see between the promissory note and bill of exchange. But this is how the things. Now the supplier is going to make that document and then getting it signed from the customer, and then obviously keeping it with itself. So just have a look. Again the same terms, but again drawer. The drawer is the maker of the bill of exchange. Who is that? This supplier. The bill is signed by the drawer. Obviously who is drawing it? The creditor, who is entitled to receive payment from the debtor, can draw a bill of exchange. Obviously is the supplier only. Creditor, credit कौन दे रहा है? Supplier दे रहा है, obviously. So drawee कौन रहेगा इसमें? It's a person to whom the bill of exchange is drawn. You have drawn it on the customer, right? And drawee is the debtor. Obviously in this case debtor is drawee. That means customer. Debtor, who is debtor? Customer. He is also known as acceptor. Obviously he has to accept it. Payee. The payee is the person to whom the payment is to be made. Payee may be drawer himself or a third party. Now the same thing, the same way as I told you, in this case also third party may be involved, like we had in case of this promissory note, right? In case of, instead of supplier saying okay, instead of making the payment to me, why don't you make the payment to some other person? So if he appoints some other person over here, then obviously this customer is going to make the payment. So payee, in this case, this drawer is going to endorse, like it was in the earlier case, it is going to endorse. Now it becomes endorsee, and payee will be this one now. The payee will become third party, transferable, right? This payee will become third party, where drawer was this one and drawee was this one. So that is how you have to understand this bill of exchange and this one. So it's the same thing, like you are endorsing, same thing. Earlier you were this, now you are endorsing, now third party. Now this third party will become payee. You remain drawer, right? Where now this customer is going to make the payment to this payee, right? So that is how you have to understand. Now if you want to have a look over here on the statement part, how it has been defined in the bills of exchange, this Negotiable Instruments Act 1881, bill of exchange is defined as an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order. Now just keep it in mind, he is saying unconditional order. So order means, why he is saying unconditional order? Because now supplier is giving an order to whom? To buyer, right? That is why unconditional order, signed by the maker, obviously the person who is issuing, who is going to sign, directing a certain person to pay. Directing whom? The buyer, to pay a certain sum of money only to या तो उसी को, or to the order of certain person, third party, or to the bearer of the instrument. Again, bearer of the instrument, as you said, in case of this RBI Act, it is not allowed now. So that is why. But definitely to the person is mentioned or third party is involved, to them we can definitely transfer. Features of the bill of exchange, again more or less on the similar lines. Important to have a bill of exchange in writing में होना चाहिए. Unconditional, the order should not have any condition. Unconditional होना चाहिए. Amount should be definite, specific amount. Date. Bill must be signed by both the drawer and drawee. And see, this point can be a little debatable, but anyway, it must in any case must be signed by the what? Drawee. Buyer. Buyer से तो आपको sign होना ही चाहिए. अगर sign नहीं है तो then it goes. The amount stated on the bill should be paid on the demand and all that. Demand on demand भी हो सकता है, we have discussed, as well as it could be on that particular date that is mentioned. The amount paid to the beneficiary, to the bill specific person, or in case a third party is also involved. That is why it is negotiable. So almost all those terms are related to like promissory note, and they are more or less related. Now have a look over here. Like in promissory note also, it is a legal document. Discounting facility. Now discounting facility का मतलब ये हो सकता है, तो third party कई बार जो है बैंक भी हो सकता है. Right. So, for example, if you are supposed to make the payment after 3 months, so instead of that, आप क्या करते हो? आपको जरूरत पड़गी, let us say, and you go to the bank, and let us say after 1 month you go to the bank and you ask the bank to make the payment. So bank जो है आपको advance में payment नहीं करेगा. If it is bank is making the payment in advance, that means it will charge some amount extra. पर आपको जरूरत है, वो आप you are ready to make the payment for that. So आपने किया, even though you had to get that money after 3 months. But what you are doing is you are getting within 1 month, but obviously bank is going to charge some amount additional from you. So it is mean आपने discounting facility का मतलब यही होता है, बैंक ने आपने additional kind of money, you got your money but paying some amount extra, and then अब pay कौन हो गया इसमें? So ये काम तो खत्म हो गया, तो इस केस में pay कौन होगा? तो customer is going to make the payment to the bank. That is the meaning of this. So he has taken the money from bank. That's all. So endorse कर दिया बैंक को, and now pay, it becomes bank become pay. अब बैंक जो पूछेगा आपसे after 3 months, right? So discounting facility also available. Endorsement possible. So endorsement का मतलब third party. So not only to the bank but some third party also, right? So that is how you have to understand this. And let's see very briefly the difference between them, even though I have explained you the differences, but to sum it up, I can discuss the differences. So first is bill of exchange and promissory note, definition wise. See it goes this way, like here in bill of exchange you give the order, issued to order, that means it is ordering that particular buyer to make the payment, where it is issued by the debtor with a promise. यहाँ पर जो है वो क्या कर रहा है, buyer जो है वो is giving the promise to make the payment. So पहला तो in the definition part, that is a difference. Now the second difference from the exam point of view, which is very important, this instrument bill of exchange is very categorically mentioned under the section 5, whereas it is very categorically mentioned under the section 4. Just remember it. Direct question could be framed that under section 4, which one of these is mentioned. For example, same way like under section 6, check is mentioned as a negotiable instrument. So it should be very clear to you. Issued by, who is going to issue? Promissory note, you know, debtor. उधार लेने वाला कौन है? Buyer. Buyer is giving the promise. Whereas creditor issues the bill of exchange. Right? So that you know. Now, so acceptance, no acceptance is required from the drawee. Right? That means customers, जो in case of promissory note में क्या हो रहा है? Promissory note में तो केवल आप खुद ही क्या कर रहे हो? Promissory note में buyer by himself, they are giving the in return, giving the like okay assurance that okay I'm going to make you payment. So their signatures are required. So he is the drawer, buyer is the drawer, but drawer is supplier. So supplier की sign की requirement नहीं है such, right? So same way, let's go to the this one. Drawee needs to accept the bill of exchange before payment. Obviously इस केस में तो आपको करना पड़ेगा. जो drawee कौन है? Draw किया है supplier ने, and drawee is customer. So until customer accept it, that drawee accept it, it carries no meaning, right? Is it payable to drawer or maker? Is it payable to drawer or maker? Now see, same person cannot be drawer and pay. Now and yes, same person can be drawer and pay. Bill of exchange में pay और drawer same हो सकता है, right? Bill of exchange में your pay and drawer both can be same. Drawer and pay can be same in bill of exchange. Same he has mentioned. Yes, the same person can be drawer and pay. Same person cannot be drawer and pay. क्योंकि drawer उस केस में क्या होगा? Promissory note में क्या होगा? Pay तो यही रहेगा. Payee is always going to be supplier. Payee is always going to be supplier. So in case of promissory note, drawer will be customer. So when drawer is the customer, then obviously drawer and pay cannot be same. As simple as that, right? Pay will always be supplier. As simple as that. पैसे तो आपको supplier को ही देने हैं. फर्क क्या हो रहा है? आपका drawer और drawee change हो रहे हैं bill of exchange में and in promissory note में. So in promissory note में drawer is customer. So customer cannot be paid. Customer is payer, right? So that is the difference that you need to note. So I think I hope you understood the meaning of bill of exchange and this promissory note, that is the negotiable instruments. So in next session, most probably in the class, I'm going to discuss with you the remaining negotiable instrument, that is this check and the questions based upon whatever we have discussed. And in addition, also we have to discuss about the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 also. So okay, see you in the next session. Till then, bye. Thank you.